Morning. I think you'll have a few, maybe one more cut after today, Falco. Be my guess. Streamer mode on? Yeah, turn that off. Just quit Discord in general. Baki, I don't know what your question is. Hello, first time watcher. Ink, baby. Yeah, when I go live 15 minutes before, and then I go to brush my teeth, shave my neck, and put clothes on. So. Brush your neck, shave your teeth. Well, I don't want to get any cavities on my neck, so. What a coincidence. I would assume that you are going to be resting, Blushling. Before you go, I do have one question. The controllers you guys used, was it your own controllers or were they like Nintendo's controllers? That would seem to be the one thing that I couldn't find exactly. So they were not your own controllers. Okay, interesting. Everything. Well, what about the Switch? Was that your own personal Switch that you're using, or were those like Nintendo Switches that you had to create your profiles on? Borrowed Switches as well. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for clearing that up. That I got something to say about that. You're really in Iceland right now? What are you doing in Iceland? You guys think it's weird. It's not. It's not weird. It's on brand, actually. But I'll explain that a little bit later. Is that why... I believe it was you that was seated. It looked like you were distancing yourself from the rest of your team. It's because the one next to you was broken. I just left it up there. So just don't sit here. We're not gonna break it down or anything. We're just gonna leave it up. Just sit on this other one. Wow, that person really doesn't like their team. Can I get an extra station so I don't have to sit directly next to my teammate, please? Take too much time in between sets. Okay, what about in between days? Is it... Whatever. Oh, we're gonna have fun today. Already had stuff planned out, but Blushling, you just confirmed a lot of my suspicions. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify. While you're hoping your LUTI match this week doesn't go to a game 9, based on the map list, getting roasted alive by the chat of Stormy's Hood commentary, rage hacking a solo game because you got squid bagged while losing in overtime. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. Today here in the States, which, by the way, my apologies to everybody who's going to be watching this live or most likely the VOD later on YouTube that is across the pond. Yes, I'm doing a whole segment talking about Europe stuff, and I'm doing it at a time that is not EU friendly. Hey, today was a holiday here in North America, Indigenous Peoples Day, where we celebrate Indigenous people and, more importantly, get paid to not go into work. So any day where I'm paid to stay at home is an actual holiday, and then holidays like Halloween, where I have to go into work anyways, are not real holidays. That's how the adult pop gun sees holidays in this world. I got to spend some time with my family. I got to take my son out on a little walk throughout the neighborhood. He's got a cute little bear hat that we put on him. Good day so far. Could always get a whole lot worse. Still 6 hours left to go today. And now, case in point, I'm spending a portion of my holiday here with you idiots. So, yeah, take that with a grain of salt. News of tournaments may be of interest to the casual listener of the Popcast. It is an SAC weekend. The second qualifier is this upcoming Saturday for those of you that are eligible for SAC. Squid Junction, I believe, is going to be taking place this Saturday as well. Proving Grounds on Friday. And, of course, you're going to realize, I didn't play my Week 1 LUTI match because our opponent wasn't available. You're in for a surprise. Your Week 2 opponent isn't going to be available either, and you already used your replay. Oops. You know, just assume, if you look at the roster of the opponent you're playing this week, if they only have 4 players on their roster, they're not going to be available. They didn't realize what they were signing up for. You got to roll like 5, 6, 7 players deep into the LUTI season if you actually want to be available. Just hoping that exactly 8 specific players are all available at the same time at one point of the week. You are screwed. I hear makeup week is going to be lovely this time of year. It's not my problem, though. Today, we are going to be talking about the Week 1 of LUTI. I did not do predictions. I'll explain why. But I just had some general thoughts as I was watching some sets over the course of the past week. So we'll be talking about that. All that and more. But first, the gift that keeps on giving here on the Popcast is our overlords at Nintendo, constantly creating new and exciting ways for us to be excited about their tournaments. Each one of their tournaments, amazing in production and unrivaled as far as prizes are concerned, partnered with unbelievably hilarious incompetence in just about every other area that takes place in these Nintendo tournaments. North America, of course, has been spoiled for so long the past 3 years with randomly timed tournaments, qualifiers that you don't realize are qualifiers for LAN events until after they're already done, teams getting invited to said finals of these hidden qualifying events that are straight up cheaters, and Nintendo refuses to acknowledge that those teams were cheating, even though everyone in the community is like, hey, these guys cheated. They admitted they cheated. Why are you inviting them to your grand finals live event? Oh boy, fun times there. Prizes being changed in the middle of events. Prizes being taken away in the middle of events. It's always a wonderful time whenever we're talking about Nintendo related stuff here in North America on the Popcast. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. It's about time we shared a bit of this jank love with the rest of the world. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, this happened like 2 years ago. You guys don't remember the Elite Four thing? There was a Popcast episode about it. Go back and check it out. Funny stuff happened there. But it's time the rest of the world got this love. That's right. North America's the only one subjected to these jank tournaments. Now, South America, are you getting any of this love? No, of course not. And by South America, I mean, of course, everything south of Mexico, because that's what South America is to Nintendo for some reason. No, you guys still get absolutely jack squat. Of course, I'm talking about Europe. Europe is getting their own version of the Nintendo tournaments for the first time, I believe, since 2019. So congratulations to them. What all? And honestly, this is great. It's great that Europe got this series of events and tournaments dedicated just for them, with the overall European champion going on to represent the entire continent in the Splatoon World Championships that will be held at Japan some point later this year, I believe. It's weird, though, that everything about the European qualifiers were completely different from the North American tournaments that we've been getting the past 4 years. Each country had their own individual qualifier instead of how we do it here in North America, which is online tournaments, turf war, speed ladder for 3 hours of day one, and then day two is a single elimination bracket into a top four double elimination bracket. With, since the seeding is based off of speed ladder turf war, the seeding for those single elimination brackets are anything but ideal, which leads to some arguably grand final matches being played in quarterfinals before they even get to the double elimination stage. Instead, Europe had their own qualifiers for each of their countries. Now, you would think those would be a little bit more thought out, a little bit more, a little bit better. And in some ways, they were better than what North America gets. And in some ways, they were, Nintendo creating new ways to be incompetent with how they do things. Just take a look at the UK and Ireland tournament, the grand finals for their events. As pointed out by Nebula of Spark, that event was hosted at a LAN, but there was no travel accommodations provided to the players, no notice given other than a 12-day communication given out to the players beforehand, no stream for the finals either. And that was just the finals for the qualifiers for that were basically just thrown out the week of. Hey, there's an event going on at this location on this upcoming Saturday. What? Wait, what? You're just telling us this now? How are we supposed to get there? How are we supposed to build a team this quickly? Maybe a little bit more notice would have been nice, but nope. These things just seem to pop up. It's almost like somebody just gets these ideas and just runs through it before actually implementing it. IPL Versus was a year in the making. That's not to say that JPEG needed an entire year to create IPL Versus, but it was the year of like thinking everything out about what do I want this to be and what do I want this to look like. Let me take some more time to make sure I got exactly the product that I want, which is what JPEG thought. Now, a online exhibition match is not the same as a LAN. LANs need even more time to be planned out. And I'm sure they were planned out, but as far as their announcements to all the participants was not planned out and seemed extremely rushed, which is unfortunate with that. When the dust settled, though, from all the qualifiers across Europe, you had country champions ready to fight it out in Germany this past weekend. And in all honesty, it was fantastic. From somebody who had to wake up early to watch it, I thought the production and the overall event was really cool, at least from our perspective, watching it from the outside, looking in across the pond here. Normally, how North America does things is hosting a top 4 team single elimination tournament at a PAX event where they either do the turf war thing, best of 1 turf war to determine seeding for that, or they do it off stream now. Regardless, they just do a 1-day event, best single elimination, best of 3 semifinals. I think it's best of 7 grands. Go from there. The European Championship was an entire weekend. Saturday was a group stage, and Sunday was a top cut, which was basically that single elimination top cut, and they made them play the 3rd place match afterwards. And I didn't watch it, but I'm assuming they took it more seriously than the Ink TV 3rd place match was taken. But still, that's cool, and that makes sense. If you got the players there, let them play. Now, was travel and hotels and all that stuff provided to the players? I have no idea. I did see one player tweeting out like, hey, does anyone got a place for me to stay? I didn't really know what that was about, and I didn't look to that much more deeper into that. However, I will say I like the 2-day format, and I'm kind of curious why they don't do that with the North America Championships. I know they want to do them at the PAX event specifically, but PAX isn't just a 1-day event, isn't it? And the players, they bring the players out there for like a full week before. It seems like we're seeing Crush Soda tweeting out how they're just kind of partying down the street on like Tuesday before the event that takes place on Sunday. Like, you got the players there early. Why not have like a group stage or a round robin on Saturday to determine the seeding for your final event on Sunday, instead of just having them all play one match, potentially just one match, and then they're done? So I like the fact that there was a group stage on one day and then a finals on the next day. It gives you the build up. It gets you more time to see these players. And wow, Nintendo of Europe did make sure you saw these players. I thought it was really cool that they had the gameplay up and at the same time a rotating face cam. Usually when we have face cams at a LANs, it's usually just showing them in between sets, or you try to cut off the gameplay a few seconds before it ends so that you can see the reaction of the team as they're winning. But no, you can see the literal faces and them vocalizing call-outs. You don't hear the call-outs, but you can see them actually speaking the call-outs to each other while the game is actually going on. Now, the overlay for it seemed like it's still, like it could be improved upon, but still it's innovative. I can't think of a single time where you saw the players' faces live alongside with the gameplay of any Splatoon LAN, Nintendo or otherwise. So I thought that was cool. The Who Wants to Be a Millionaire tense music in between each game was unnecessary, and I hope the players didn't hear that music that we were hearing on the stream. But like literally after every single set, or like every single game within a set, it's a switch to this da 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 da. Like, okay, ooh, am I going to use phone a friend here? Am I gonna what am I playing for $1,000? What's going on here? It seems so odd to add this extra level of stress. And if it's for the viewers, cool. But if the players could hear it too, then that's like, come on, you're torturing them. Just let them play the damn set without this this unnecessary filler stress that they're applying to them right there. So be it, though. However, as cool as it was to see this event, we all know it doesn't matter. Alliance Rogue, and I believe you were forced, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were forced to play with players from your country. Well, that doesn't affect Alliance Rogue. All their players are from France. So they basically get their buff super team representing their country, going in against other teams. Well, you know, Spark is, I believe, all UK. I don't know about the other teams, if they are their traditional teams that they play with are always with their same team country, or if they have players from different countries. Like the last time Alliance Rogue played in 2019, I believe it was in the it was either that or 2018 when they played at the actual LAN World Championships. You had players, you had Kiver, you had Watson on a team, and I believe Brian was on that Alliance Rogue team as well. Those players aren't all from the same country. I'm pretty sure they're all not from the same country. So I don't think that would have been allowed in the current format, but it doesn't matter because this version of Alliance Rogue is all players from France. So that means everyone else in Europe is basically just cannon fodder because they are going to absolutely curb stomp everyone here. There's nobody that can really stand up to them. Except, no. Alliance Rogue didn't even make it to Grand Finals, actually. Kaiser, the German team, using the German home field advantage that they had, which is kind of weird. We're not used to like teams having an actual home field advantage in competitive Splatoon, but Kaiser 100% did. Knocked out Alliance Rogue in Game 5, Mako Mart Clam Blitz, getting the win in overtime. Much to the delight of everyone in the audience that was watching that live, and everyone across Twitter who was like, whoa, that's a major upset. Wow, I can't believe Alliance Rogue found a way to not get the victory in this EU championship. That's not to take anything away from Kaiser, but still a very impressive upset for them. Now, in hindsight, it's not really that surprising because, yes, Alliance Rogue is a top 3 team in the West. There's no denying that. You can't say otherwise. But of the top 3 teams in the West, nobody is more upset prone than Alliance Rogue is. And I don't know why that is. If teams are like they either figure out how to deal with the roller or they don't, or if it's whenever you're playing Alliance Rogue and it's late night in them versus North America where it's more, well, it's time right now. You just around dinner time. I don't know what it is, but Alliance Rogue is if you were looking to get a walking +1 result, you want to face Alliance Rogue, especially when it's later in the day. But still, this seems like a tournament Alliance Rogue should be winning regardless of that, especially against fellow Europeans at a LAN where there is no connection issues and everybody's playing in the same environment, right? Everyone's playing with the same equipment with no issues, right? Well, one of the main talking points, if you went on Twitter, Alliance Rogue was complaining about controller issues, which is pretty significant. So let's dive into that. First off, if you've never been to a LAN before, playing Splatoon on a LAN mode is the most purest form of Splatoon that you've ever played. If you've never played LAN Splatoon, I would argue you've never really played Splatoon before. It's literally a completely different game. And it's so weird to say because if you think about it, probably 0.001% of people that own a copy of Splatoon 3 have ever used the shoal and probably don't even know that there is a LAN code that you have to enter once you're in the shoal to get into a LAN mode. Like it's not a common thing to play Splatoon in LAN mode in general. You think about our at other LAN events or tournaments, our big brothers that play Smash Brothers, They're just playing like they always play. Like they're technically playing LAN mode all the time whenever they play an event, unless they decide to play on the Wi-Fi thing, which they don't, which sucks, understandably so. But Splatoon is all 100% online for the most part, with the rare exceptions of LANs. But if you've never played LANs and you've just watched them, you've probably seen some weird jank take place. You've seen a player DC in the middle of a set. How the heck can that happen if there's a LAN connection? What you don't see is the tens of minutes. So at one point, the second Riptide last year, 30s of minutes to get players into lobbies. There's always some sort of jank that goes on at a LAN. Most notably, it doesn't really happen at places like, or at least nobody's really has come out and publicly griped about this at the locals, at the Big Dapples, at the Southern California LAN, at Arizona. You don't really see people complain about LAN jank that happens at those places. Why? Those are played at actual esport arenas, places that are built for esports. All these other big events, though, the Riptides, the Low Tide cities, the Rising Squid LAN when we had Patom J on, and the PAX events. Those are not esport arenas. Those are places that were built to be esports arenas overnight. Low Tide City and Riptide, those are literally just conference rooms that they just ship all the equipment into, build it all up overnight, and then the next day wake up and we're playing a major Splatoon tournament. Like those, it causes some issues when you do things like that. And a lot of that equipment, as I pointed out before, is the same exact wires, LAN connectors, TM1s, even though the TM1s are now a little bit new. It makes things a little bit more, it adds more issues for things to happen in those places. And PAX is no different from that because it's still the same thing. They're building it up overnight. And controller issues, when those happen, a lot of the time that has to do with the table that you're at. I remember at Genesis 7, they used metal tables for everything to be at. And the problem with the metal table is, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I play, I have my controller underneath the table. I have the controller in my lap, and it's technically underneath the table. Well, when you got the metal one there, the connection between the controller and the switch gets a little bit distorted. And what happens is your inkling several times will just start drifting and wobbling and pointing in all kinds of different directions. So to kind of get around that, you either like back your table up, or you've seen some people stand up and play. And we always thought, well, it's kind of weird that person's standing up, but it's like, well, when they're standing up, they don't have to go through the table to connect to the input to their switch. And I've seen some people hardwire. Well, I don't know if it's technically hardwired or not, but how you would charge your controller on your Switch. I've seen people do that so that they can help decrease the input lag that can go on at a LAN. I don't know if that actually helps or not, but at some point there's only so few things you can do. And even Low Tide City this past year, my team and myself experienced a few of those stations, like specific spots on a few of those stations had just like dead zones. And I remember just yelling at my teammate, like, just back up. If your controller is bad, just back away from the station a little bit. And then I went and sat in that person's spot and was like, oh, wait, yeah, you're right. This is like, there's nothing you can do. There's just slight random spikes of interference. And part of that was Low Tide City having no real time to do a stress test. Like they just had to build the entire venue, and I don't think they were able to do a stress test overnight before the tournament started the next day. If you're wondering what I mean by stress test, I literally mean you just get 8 players, you go to each station, you see if everyone can get into a lobby, you see if everyone can hear each other on the TM1s, and you play just like a 5-minute mock game just to see if everyone stays connected into the lobby throughout the whole time. I don't think that really happened at Low Tide City due to time constraints, and that might be why there were like some stations that were just, okay, oh, this is broken and we don't realize it. But the most egregious example of LAN jank ever was the second Riptide, the Riptide that happened last year, that where day one was a Splatoon 3 tournament, which was the day Splatoon 3 launched, which initially you think, oh, that's a great idea. That's a Splatoon tournament on launch day. That's going to be fantastic. And it was the worst thing on God's green earth. It took, and I kid you not, it took literally 30 minutes almost every single round to get people in the lobbies because it was just that broken. It just was not working those days. And it was so bizarre because a week before that, if you remember, and this is the point I'm getting to, connecting it to the EU Championship yesterday, there was a PAX event. There was a North America Championship for Splatoon 3 where everyone that qualified for it was playing in a Splatoon 2 tournament, and they got the game a week early, and they were able to play the game before anybody else had it. And it was weird because how come they had zero jank at their LAN event, but a week later when the game comes out, nobody, bar none, could find a way to connect to the lobbies? And there were people that were extremely knowledgeable with Nintendo stuff at that Riptide, and it still was a nightmare getting people connected to the lobbies. Why was there no jank at the Nintendo PAX event? Well, some of those players were at Riptide, and I remember talking to one of them specifically. I said, like, how did you guys experience any of this stuff at their place? And it was like, no, they made them all play on the developers' own Switches. They made them create their characters with the way they wanted on the developer Switches, and everybody had 2 additional backup Switches in case one of them didn't work. So Nintendo at that PAX event was rolling extremely deep because they knew that this game wasn't ready for LAN mode, and they were going to use every single thing they had to their advantage to make sure there was zero jank. And from what we could tell from the viewers, there was zero jank. So if Nintendo of North America was to go to that extent to make sure there were no issues with their event, how in the hell can Nintendo of Europe provide controllers to the players, which Blushling in chat before this episode went live confirmed everything was provided. They didn't use their own equipment. This was all provided by Nintendo. How can you let a team go on there and play with faulty equipment if it's not their equipment? That is absolutely unacceptable to me. And I know we're missing information to the story. Because did Alliance Rogue, after that first game, raise their hand and be like, hey, something's wrong here? Did they not say anything? Did they complain? And then were they told, no, you can't use the different controllers, we don't have anything extra? But it just boggles my mind that they would go... I'm not saying Alliance Rogue is lying, but it's so bizarre that Nintendo of Europe would be that incompetent with their own equipment, whereas Nintendo of North America is like, we got a backup plan for the backup plan for the backup plan. It's unfortunate because if your controller's not working in a LAN, if you haven't experienced that before, again, it's basically your inkling is drunk, and you can play the game and it spikes. It's not consistent, but those one moments, if you're in a fight with someone and all of a sudden you're pointing and shooting up at God and then you die, like, that's beyond frustrating. And if at that point, when it's that kind of an issue, playing at the LAN, the advantage of having a LAN setting goes out the window. Like, this would have been a better set if the controllers really were an issue. This would have been a better set if they just stayed at their home country and played online with the online latency. At least their controllers got zero input lag. Like, it's just unacceptable if that is true. Again, we're missing some information there, but from what the information is being presented, man, that really sucks that there were controller issues. And that was equipment that was provided by Nintendo. Regardless, that doesn't discredit Kaiser's win at all. It honestly doesn't. Kaiser absolutely deserved that win. And I know whenever somebody loses, we like to point the finger at things outside of our control. This person lagged. The lag rules of this tournament suck. The DC rules of this tournament suck. Controller issues. Like it's understandably frustrating, but isn't it funny? The lag goes back to Nintendo's crappy netcode. The DC issues goes back to Nintendo's crappy netcode. The controller issues are literally from Nintendo in this event. It's always Nintendo that sucks with the creating their own game. And it's always, well, why aren't the TOs fixing this? It's like, there's only so many rules I can make to fix a broken game, guys. Like, there's not much I can do about that. But regardless, here's what's so crazy about all of this is we reflect on the year as a whole. When you think back to the Ink TV League, in April, I argue the most important match of this entire year, the match of the year, and I don't think this is going to be topped in the next 2 months. It was Alliance Rogue versus Starburst. Starburst going into that set undefeated against the West, like 48-0 at that point. Alliance Rogue just adding Volti, just trying to figure out what their new identity is. It goes all the way to a best of 9. Every game is a nail biter. It could have gone either way, and Alliance Rogue steals a win at Mako Mart Splat Zones to seal the victory against Starburst. And at that time, that seemed like the peak. Like, these are the top 2 teams, and this is where competitive Splatoon is heading. That it's a completely wide open field now. It's weird to think that those 2 teams played in the best match of the year. Starburst is not going to be representing North America, and Alliance Rogue is not going to be representing Europe in the Splatoon World Championships. That's a sign of the times. How far this community has come to being so set in stone that Starburst owns everything, to we don't even know who the best team in Europe is anymore at this point. Or, well, we don't even know what kind of controllers we're using at Europe at this point. Woo! Regardless, the main point of this, everybody that played in the EU championships that I saw on Twitter were constantly talking about how much fun they were having. That's really what this is all about. The same thing with the players in North America that play at the PAX event. The same thing with people that go to Riptide and Low Tide City and all the locals. Everybody just points out how much fun they have. Maybe not playing the game in particular, but getting to meet everybody else in this community. The most important thing, not to get too preachy here, but in my more advanced stage than most of you, I'm starting to realize that at some point I will perish from this earth. And the only thing that I can leave behind is memories. So making as many memories as possible, in my mind, is the main reason to be alive on planet Earth. And this game provides so many opportunities for us to make memories. Everybody talking about how much fun they had, that's the whole point. And the Kaiser players and the Jackpot players that get to go to Japan and play in the World Championships, that's something they'll get to remember for the rest of their lives. And that's being brought to them by a video game made by a company that has no idea what they're doing. So that's the point of this. Just enjoy all of these things. And for everyone that went to the the EU Championships, it looked like you guys had a blast, and that's really the only reason that's what this is all about. So cherish those memories, and hopefully there are more things to come from this. As much as I've been laughing at, the incompetencies, this is still a step in the right direction. Now, I do want to point out, and I make a point to continuously try to say this. You guys cannot sit here and wait for Nintendo to save us. You can't sit here and say, oh, eventually Nintendo's going to do this, and that's going to make the scene great. No, when Nintendo does things, it's cool. And I like doing it because I like laughing at how bad they are. But in particular, they're cool to see these things, and they're providing memories for people. But don't for a second think that they can save this community. If you want the competitive Splatoon community to go anywhere, the grassroots people involved in these things are the only ones who are going to get it done. If you sit around and wait for Nintendo, You're going to be in a whole world of hurt, and South America is just going to continue to drown. Please give them a freaking tournament. Something. Let them play in the North America one. Come on. You're not giving away prizes to chairs anymore. Who cares? It's all us, baby. It's always just been us. That's how it always will be. Shut down IPL. The real thing we need to be worried about is what if they do something about send-out queue? Honestly. I don't think they will, because the other apps that they've shut down all took information directly from, I believe, like your Nintendo account in some way. But, I mean, if you want to talk about something getting shut down, it's not going to be IPL. That's going to be the first thing to get shut down. And if it is, that's a free week of episodes I could do here. So, win-win. Unless it's not. Oh. It's time for the weekly recap. SOS number 124 took place last Wednesday. It was won by the Ducks. Duck Motif. Second place went to Snow-Q Warriors, and Chi-Chi Wasnik rounds out your top three. The Duck Crew, as a Tempest. Excuse me. I don't know why that keeps happening. But the Duck Gang, Duck Motif, Duck Mafia, the Quack Attack, newer-ish team made up of some strong players, and I'm excited to see what this team can do against some other teams if there's a next higher level tournament that may invite them or may entice them to want to come out and play with it. Maybe they'll play somebody in IPL Versus. Who knows? That'd be cool to see. Hammerhead was won by Free Flow. Mako Bracket was won by the Color Brothers. And Lantern Bracket won by Marine Melody. Speaking of IPL Versus, the first ever IPL Versus match took place on Friday. It was Moonlight versus Last Resort, and Moonlight creamed Last Resort 5-1 after the set was tied 1 apiece. Moonlight won 4 straight and didn't look back. Moonlight looked really good. They looked like a well-oiled machine when they got all 4 of their players on their roster ready to go. And yeah, absolutely fantastic set. Want to see more of Moonlight. I think like I've been saying that for a while now. The Collegiate Cephalopod Association is going on at this time right now, believe it or not. The same time as LUTI, a college version of LUTI is going on. If you are a CCA team and you are playing in both of these things, you are not going to pass your classes this semester, and that's something you signed up for. Hey, competitive Splatoon. It's more important than that toilet paper degree you're getting. Division 1, to highlight some of the matches of the week. University of Maryland College Park got a 4-3 win over the Night Sharks, representing Central Florida. UC Davis got a 4-3 win over Rowan University, and the California San Diego squad got a 4-3 win over VCU, also known as Ink Black. In Division 2, IVC Diamond Rays got a 4-2 win over the University of Oklahoma. The Cal State University Long Beach got a 4-3 win over Sparty, Michigan State University, firing their head football coach. Need to find a way to get some more wins in Splatoon. Division 3, Creamed Corn, obviously representing the Cornhuskers of the University of Nebraska. They got a 4-3 win over the Arizona Wildcats. Div 4 saw the Penn State Nittany Lions getting a Div 4 win over Airside. Mute this stream for about 5 seconds. Worcester Polytech Institute 4-2. In Div 5, Villanova University beat up the Middle Tennessee. Yeah! Beat Middle Tennessee State 4-3. Let's go, Villanova. I see you. I see anybody beating Middle Tennessee, a WKU rival in all other sports. Div 6, the University of Houston Cougars. Juanita College fell to the Cougars 4-2. We'll be recapping CCA stuff over the course of the week. Brought to you by our friends at CCA and Riley Rooster. Rooster Riley, usually providing me a little bit of information every single week. I appreciate it. Let's take a look at LUTI, the top 5 matches of the week in my opinion. First off, Div X saw Red Sun get a 5-2 win over Shadow Bolt. Okay, Red Sun, I see you there. In Div 1, Assault and Pepper got a 5-3 win over Cherry Limeade. Div 4 saw the Cactus Crew getting a 5-4 win over Free Flow. In Div 5, Shine did not get a cavity for Gravity. Instead, they won 5-3. And in Div 7, the Glitter Gel Pins got a 5-3 win over the Pucker Up Pufferfish game. We'll be continue to highlight some key matches every single league here on LUTI. In the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe without Taylor Swift, got a 27-20 win over the Minnesota Vikings. The Baltimore Ravens wanted to lose more than the Pittsburgh Steelers did. The Steelers ended up winning 17-10 in that messy game. The Rams could not find a way to get past the Eagles, losing to them 23-14, falling to 2-3 on the season. But hey, Cooper Kupp's back. There's hope. And that was your weekly recap. Sponsored by the Collegiate Cephalopod Association. The Collegiate Cephalopod Association is back for their 4th season. This fall, they have welcomed in over 130 teams from over 78 universities, including the first 2 teams from Canada. Their biggest season yet. This makes the CCA the premier collegiate Splatoon league, not only in the United States, but across North America. Stay tuned for the next 2 months to hear about your favorite college team's performance each week. The weekly recap, sponsored by the CCA. I forgot to move my arrow. The people on YouTube, well, they just skipped the weekly recap. That's the only reason I watch. Where's the weekly recap segment, Popcast? Sorry. As we get into the LUTI chat here, can we get some F's in chat for all the teams that dropped and disbanded after getting their ass just totally destroyed in week 1, and then they realized they needed to stop playing. So here's to you, losers. But no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Look. Obviously, I'm joking. It's not that deep. If you don't want to play, you don't want to play. There's no like contractual reason for you to play out the entire season. Yes, if you lose week 1, you can still win the tournament. Silly Kitties lost week 2, 5-1, and they still destroyed their div. It's not over after week 1. If you lose week 2 and you go down 0-2, then you need help. Then you need some other people in your group to beat some teams that like they're seeded not to help your own case. But you can take one loss and be just fine. Be completely fine. And I'm not, yes, is it annoying that we spent an entire week seeding 600 teams and with the purpose of you guys playing out your tournaments and people don't play more than just 1 week? Yeah, it's annoying, but again, I'm not going to be one of those, and I don't disagree with people that come out and say like, well, if you sign up to play in LUTI, you should play the entire time. Even if you're going to go 0-5, you need to go 0-5 and play the entire time. Like, I get that, but I'm also at the same time not going to condemn people for dropping early. I'm just going to make fun of them. Maybe that counts as condemning. I don't know. But you can't say this. My least favorite narrative about LUTI is for people to say that LUTI is a team killer. It's not. It's a team exposer. If you drop immediately after losing in LUTI and you say, well, LUTI killed our team, I hate to break it to you. You never had a team to begin with. You just got exposed as somebody who can't handle losing. And that's why whenever you see a project become a team and they're automatically so excited that they're now a team, well, the reason they moved on from project to team is because they won a lot as a project. But once you become a team and then eventually you start losing, then you realize, oh, wait, this isn't fun. And you don't want to figure out, okay, how do we stop losing? Well, let's just break up and try to shuffle the players around again and make a new project and team and something like that. You see that a lot. And it's at that point, you never had a team to begin with. You just had a really long project. But don't blame LUTI if your team disbands. It's not LUTI's fault. It just sped up the process of the inevitable. And there are plenty teams, some teams that have played for double-digit seasons at this point, that have had little to no success in LUTI, that have gone on to have tons of success in other tournaments and have not disbanded. It's not a team killer. It's a team exposer. We figure out who has an actual team and who doesn't. LUTI predictions is something I usually do. And I said on the last episode of the podcast that I might do LUTI predictions this time around. I sat down at one point and gave it an honest effort to write out what I wanted to talk about. And I was like, there's too much. It's just too much. I don't have the time to do this. And then I was like, okay, well, what if I just went through every single div and just talked about, here's my top 5 teams and then like 3 dark horse teams that I think have the potential to be really good in each div. And even then I went through it all, and then I got down to div 8 and I was like, oh my gosh, there's still 300 more teams to go. And it's like, I could. Maybe next season under the same circumstances I might, but at this point, as I was writing it down, I was like, I don't feel good. Like, I feel like I'm just going to be going through the motions if I were to just do LUTI predictions with how big the season is versus how little time I have to spare to contribute to something like that. So my apologies for anyone that was looking forward to my predictions so that you could make fun of me at the end of the year. Just not giving them out this time around. Also, if I'm going to be completely honest here, I'm watching a lot of matches this past week. Some things I'm literally lost on. Like, as far as like teams making what kind of div, I'll look at a team and be like, I don't even remember this team signing up. I don't think I've ever even heard that team's name before. Or I'll see a team and be like, wait, what are they doing in this div? Shouldn't they be in that div? Like who's on their roster? Why is that? And then I'll go back and I'll look at the notes that we put down for each team. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But here's the thing. With the 600 teams and me being on the seeding council, I'll openly admit, I forget so many of you. I've already forgot so many of you. Teams, players, all that stuff. And I don't think it's because I'm like old or jokes or anything like that. It's just impossible to know 600 teams forwards and backwards. And I was on the seeding council, and that was just a week ago. A lot of it's already gone. Now, a good majority of you, of course, I like keep track, especially like the low ink teams have gone on to Div 4. Like, I'm watching everything that they do. And I know everything they do and all the like the name brand teams, but like a lot of these random pickups and projects, I'm like, I don't even remember seeing your name at all. Now, to be fair, according to Google, some research has been done. Apparently your brain has a cap of people that you can know at like 10,000. But as far as like people's names that you can remember, it caps out at somewhere like 5,000 or 6,000. So 3,000 people in competitive Splatoon is taking up about 50+% of my brain capacity for my entire life. So I think I'm allowed to cycle a lot of you out of my brain to save room for, IRL people. But that being said, it's not uncommon for me to just look at a set and just be like, I don't even know who these guys are. And I probably advocated for them to be in this div. That's the bizarre thing about all of this. And again, I can just go back and look at the notes and be like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why these guys are here or whatever. But there were tons of matches to watch. And it's great. Watching matches of people playing LUTI is a lot better than actually playing a LUTI. I played in 6 seasons of LUTI, all the way down when Div 6 was the basement, all the way up to Div 2. I paid my dues, all right? Like, and at this point, I got nobody to root for. My wife isn't playing anymore. I'm not playing anymore. I root for fellow Destiny Troop members, former Destiny Troop members. Sweet Tooth, Sir Skit's got to pick up. High-End Smoothie's not playing this time around. But other than that, I don't really have like an invested interest in anybody. I can just watch, it's just kind of like watching an NFL match. I don't really care who wins one way or another. I just care if my fantasy football players do well. But I can just sit down and watch a game and just enjoy it. And I can do that with this LUTI thing. And what's cool about LUTI, especially this season, is that there's so many ways to watch these sets. You got the players who stream their own individual point of views, which, by the way, if you're playing in a LUTI set, and I know like some of you can get kind of cringe with your comms, and whenever Destiny Troops streamed, I banned us from streaming our VC because we get kind of inappropriate at times when we say some things, and I don't want it aired out. And I know some of you wish that you didn't stream your VC because you've said some inappropriate things that have gotten you in some hot trouble and caused some teams to be forced to disband because of it. But streaming your point of view gets you free views. Like, everybody loves watching those things. Especially your opponents, obviously, not the opponents you're playing live, but everybody else in your LUTI group. But it's still good to just like see what's actually going on in these sets, because a lot of them, as awesome as all these sets are, not all of them are going to end up on some of these other channels I'm about to show, but it at least allows a way for every single match to be documented in some way. And I know we got replay codes now. Who goes back and checks replay codes, honestly? You'd rather watch the thing live. That's what's so cool about some of these sets. LUTI tonight streamed, by my count, 9 matches over the course of this weekend, Thursday through Sunday. 9 matches covering a wide range of divs, getting plenty of views. And what I love about the Splatoon Tourney channel is it's not all Falco anymore. Like before, it was just Falco firing up his computer 4 times a week and came on to my show and was talking about like, yeah, I'm getting burned out from doing this. It seems like this is an entire organization at this point. There's other peoples that can step in and stream and coordinate all of these other things. So it's that's good. That means this channel is going to continue to grow, and the stress that is kind of felt by not just one person, but it's just kind of spread out, so it's not so stressful. For those of you that are on Blue Sky, I got a Blue Sky account now. Begrudgingly, because IPL made me, but I'm basically just like treating it like a private account. That I don't have a private account or a circle, but I tweet more open things or post more open things on Blue Sky. One thing I was talking about yesterday was we need to find, as TOs, need to find more ways to make things easier and less stressful for us, even if it doesn't meet players' expectations, because there's no point in doing any of this stuff. It's just stressing us out. LUTI tonight is producing more content with less stress put on one individual. That's a huge plus for all of us, because all the LUTI tonight sets, and with the production value they have on their events, is extremely entertaining to watch, even if it's 2 Div 9 teams you've never heard of. 12 matches, actually. Oh, I forgot Splatoon. Forgot you have multiple channels. So 12 matches, not just 9. My goodness, 12 matches streamed by one thing. You also got, if you want a little bit more spicy commentary, you got Stormy doing a second season of the Hood commentary, which is basically just like rated R Splatoon commentary. I watch a little bit clips here and there. I remember watching last season and feel like, okay, some of this feels kind of forced, but the more Stormy's doing it, the more like natural a lot of it. It's honestly kind of hilarious at times, some of the things that they're saying, and it's all in pure fun. Like, both teams have to consent to it before they go. So don't go in there and be like, wow, these guys are being rude. Like, no, the teams know what they're signing up for. It's harmless. There's nothing bad about it. I think it's great that there's a different, it's like a different market or a different way to view a set from what we're normally used to seeing. And I feel like that does draw in a different audience. And I feel like it does put a different kind of attention onto a set. And I feel like that's a good thing. So regardless of what you think about the Stormy's hood commentary, I think it's pretty good. And I think it's only going to get better with time as well. There's a bunch of other things you can say about LUTI from week 1. What does the divs, what does week 1 say about the divs? I guess is the question. Did anybody prove that they're too good for their div? Did anyone prove they're too bad for their div or their right spot? The answer is no. No, nothing got proved or denied or anything like that after 1 week. Even if you blew out your opponent 5-0, that doesn't mean that you should be bumped up a div or that your opponent should be bumped down a div. And even if you go 5-4 against your opponent, that doesn't mean that both teams were in the correct div. It's very possible that 2 teams played a best of 9 set all the way through in a div 4, but in reality, those 2 teams should be in div 3 instead. Like, there's no way to know any of that without more context of playing out these sets. And by the time everyone's played out their sets in their group, it's been a month later and everybody's changed better or worse within a month. So then things are even more jank at that point. But nobody's like, you complained about your div. You 5-0'd your opponent. You're right. We completely screwed up. You're going to curb stomp your div. You're going to win the whole thing. No, it's a long 2 months. We got a long way to go. It's even harder to say for the larger divs, not just the 48 team divs, but also the 96 team divs, the divs that have 96 freaking teams in it. I can tell you with 100% certainty, the 96 team divs we're not sitting here saying team 1 is going to be as competitive if they play team number 80 as they play team number 3. That's not how anything on planet Earth works. There's no 96 teams in any sport that are dead even with each other. That's just what compromises had to be made so that there wouldn't be a Div 20 or whatever, which would have been ridiculous at that point. Plus, things are already whack because roster changes. I kind of pointed this out last week, how people change their rosters. That's been happening a lot. There's been a lot of roster changes since divs have come out. Most notably, Zenith has been added back onto Silly Kitties after Silly Kitties got put into Div 2. I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say that if Zenith was on the Silly Kitties roster when they first signed up, that Silly Kitties would be somewhere in the Div 1. They wouldn't be Div X. But I think it's very easy. Maybe not easy, but I think it's very likely Silly Kitties would have been argued heavily for to be put into Div 1 based just off of what Zenith has been doing alone on the pickups they've been playing for. But they get added after LUTI divs come out and they're stuck in Div 2. And they did lose their first set 5-4 to 7th Heaven. But still, that's just one example of teams that have made significant roster changes after divs has already come out and completely flipped everything on their head. And it's like, well, if the council knew you were going to change your roster 2 days ago, you would not be in the div that you are. But again, that's just how things kind of roll out here. Expect more roster changes to come out. There's no way. I haven't seen if South Park has done this yet, but there's no way South Park and Div 11 doesn't change their roster to where they add Butters to their team. Like that's the obvious 5th player they're going to add, right? Remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles added Master Splinter to their roster halfway through the season. But South Park, the 5th player that they add, it has to be Butters. I don't think they're going to add Stan Marsh. I can't think of any other character that would be like a solid 5th other than Butters. So look for Butters to be added to South Park at some point. There's a few other things to mention. Have divs already lost their relevancy? It depends on what you're using divs for. In the context of this LUTI tournament itself, which is the only thing that matters when it comes to divs, no, the divs have not lost relevancy at all. They're still pretty fresh. I talked about some factors that change things, but the general concept of LUTI divs are still very fresh, and will continue that way as far as the LUTI tournament is concerned until the playoffs are done. Did they lose relevancy already for skill cap tournaments like Low Inc? Why don't we save that conversation for the Low Inc preview next week? Because I have some thoughts on that. If you've been paying attention to anything I normally say here on the podcast, you already know the answer to that. But it's a great talking point, and that is what I like to do here is talk. That does it for today. Next week is going to be my 200th episode of the Popcast. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I will go back at some point and credit every person who's been a part of this for the past over 3 years now in some way or form. But join us next week for a special 200th episode of the Popcast. With that being said, though, if you'd like to be a part of the podcast anyway, feel free to reach out my socials below. Twitter, Mr_Popgun. YouTube at 25Popgun. Twitch at Popgun25. Anchor.fm/Popgun. Discord, straight up Popgun. And Blue Sky Popgun. That's right. I got the original Popgun on Blue Sky. So if you got one of those things, I'm pretty sure I can say that on this channel. Feel free to send me a follow or like or whatever that we're doing on that site. Why is it not showing me who's playing Splatoon 3 that I can raid? Oh, I know who. Let's go with this. With that being said, hope everybody got home safe from the EU Championships. Get vaccinated, wear a mask when applicable, and we'll see you guys for the 200th episode a week from today. Hopefully.